Hello, good crowd. I am so excited. We've had, I got a little freaked out last night. There was a big earthquake in Southern California, and I'm here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we felt it. It really freaked me out. So I tracked down Kate Stillwell. She's the CEO of Jumpstart Insurance. They just do earthquake insurance. Got this great new program, and she's been on the show before, but I said, got to have her back to talk about this earthquake. So stick around. You don't want to miss this episode.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Kate, welcome back to the show. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Kate, I'm a little discombobulated. I got to tell you, social media being what it is, I of course, when the earthquake hit, I made a video of the lights swinging in the house, and we live in a high rise in Salt Lake, which I think is how we felt it. It must have served as some sort of amplifier of the final death wave of the earthquake dying. But a lot of
death of the earthquake, that is, not death of anybody involved.
That's right, death of the earthquake, exactly. But it was sort of freaky, and I've had a number of people on social media say, "Oh, you didn't feel an earthquake 500 miles away," but we did. I checked. Did we have another earthquake in Salt Lake at the same time? No, we did not. There was no earthquake in Salt Lake or anywhere near Salt Lake. The only earthquake anywhere around that time, and it was exactly that time, was the one in Ridgecrest. So anyway, it has me a little freaked out. But you've got this great program. Tell us about your insurance program, Kate.
Sure. Jumpstart helps. Is a new kind of earthquake insurance that gets people money right away after the earthquake. And it's a fixed lump sum of money that is triggered by the occurrence of a parameter, a piece of data, and in our case, data from the U.S. Geological Survey. Another word for insurance like Jumpstart's is parametric, and Jumpstart is the first parametric insurance for consumers for earthquakes in California.
Now, you are not, technically speaking, the insurance company. You are a brokerage selling this insurance. Who underwrites this insurance for you?
The underwriters is Lloyd's, also commonly known as Lloyd's of London. And we couldn't ask for a better partner who is willing to take unusual risks for products that have never existed before.
Yeah, it's really a cool product. So this fact set of the earthquakes in Southern California the last 3 days really provides some fertile ground for having this conversation.
Going back to your comment about feeling the earthquake in Salt Lake City, it is not unprecedented that earthquakes can be felt far, far away. There was an earthquake the series of earthquakes in 1811 to 1812 near, in between St. Louis, Missouri and Memphis that were felt as far away as Boston. Wow.
Yeah. It's that's even farther, obviously. So yeah, those waves do travel and they are felt. The USGS even has on their website, which you kind of got me interested in after I was doing research for this discussion. But they said that where we sit, we might have felt it. And so they even have a little form to fill out if you did. So
yeah, did you feel it?
I did. Yeah, did you feel it form? So I filled out the did you feel it form because I did. It was, but this fact set is really an interesting fact set because on Thursday, the 4th of July, there was a big earthquake, a 6.4 magnitude earthquake. And I'm forgetting now where exactly that one was centered. Where was that one centered?
They were both centered in nearly identical places in near Ridgecrest, California. So it's in the desert. It's about halfway between Bakersfield, which is in the Central Valley, and Death Valley, which is over near the Nevada border. Yeah,
it really is in an almost unpopulated area, the exact epicenter. I mean, there's nobody there, right?
Well, the town of Ridgecrest is somewhere around 20,000 people.
Yeah, but even that is 10 miles from the epicenter. Or 8 miles or something from the epicenter?
Yes, right.
So is that enough distance to provide any protection? I don't understand the scale of these things very well.
Yeah, for a magnitude 7, anything within 10 or 20 miles, you're really going to feel some serious shaking. And I'm sure you've seen the various videos on social media of people, the water from people's swimming pools sloshing out and bookshelves falling and things like that. We are so relieved to hear the initial reports that no deaths have been reported as a cause of the earthquake. And yeah, that's just a huge relief. And it speaks to not just the distance from the town to the epicenter, but also the fact that the town has been built since the 1940s, which is after seismic resistant building codes were implemented in California, which was 1933.
So, among the, I just realized I hadn't turned the camera on. I mentioned I was discombobulated, right? So Thursday there was an earthquake.
Yep.
Your program is to determine eligibility within 24 hours.
That's right.
Is that correct?
Yep.
So that means on Friday you determined eligibility. And it turns out, I think you told me offline, no one of your customers was covered by this quake under your policy.
The magnitude 6.4, that's right. We had no customers in the payout zone. There was a payout zone, but none of our current customers were located inside that payout zone.
So yesterday's quake, the one that happened 12 hours ago, you've not yet officially established the payout zone.
Correct.
It was a bigger quake.
Yes.
Something
bigger
like 6.9, 7.1, something like that. So it'll probably have a bigger payout zone. That may reach more populated areas. So you may have a customer. That determination will be made this evening. Is that right?
Yes, 8:19 p.m.
Now, if a customer had been in the zone for Thursday's earthquake and again for
last night's earthquake,
Friday's earthquake, so those are just 2 days, the consecutive days. Would they have received 2 payouts?
No. The policy specifically excludes any additional earthquakes within 7 days.
Okay.
So that covers aftershocks or foreshocks to main shocks. However, if it's 8 days, if there were 8 days instead of 1 day in between the two, then the customer would have, the hypothetical customer would have gotten 2 payments.
Yeah, interesting. There are a number of things that are novel about your policy. One is that we talked about this idea. It's triggered solely by the event and the data, and not by filing a claim related to your damage. Right? You only ask that they confirm that they have a need for the money. Is that right?
Exactly. That's right. And the payment is $10,000. So nobody gets rich off $10,000. It's not going to be enough to rebuild your house. It's meant to start the recovery process, start plowing back so that you can stay and help your neighbors rather than migrating, moving away.
It is a huge amount of money, especially if it comes quickly in a situation where your home is not completely destroyed, right? And although there are homes that are completely destroyed by earthquakes, as you were talking, the new standards, construction standards in California and in most of the country, homes are pretty resilient. Most homes don't fall down.
Right.
Is that right?
Right.
I think even in the 80s, I think of the big Northern California quake. You live up in Northern California, I think.
That's right, in Oakland.
Yeah, so I mean, that 880 freeway, you may not be old enough to remember when it pancaked down.
Oh, yes, I remember.
But that was a massive quake. And really, I think in that whole thing, 8 people were killed or something. And although there were buildings that did collapse, most of them were old, the new construction survived, right? Not that there was no damage, but most buildings survived. So I guess my question is, it seems like 10 grand really could go a long way for a lot of people.
Yeah, and you make a good point, which is that Our biggest problems after an earthquake are not necessarily related to deaths. Certainly lots of people get injured, but some of the bigger problems are social and economic disruption. And to the extent that we can help smooth the recovery of the social or the governance or in our case, the economic disruption by helping to jumpstart the recovery, that's why we're here.
Now, let's go back. You and I talked about this a little bit before, but I want to review for people who may not have heard our conversation before. But tell us a little bit about how you came upon this idea. This is really a pretty novel idea.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So it's the same origin of why I know about the building code. So I'm a licensed structural engineer by training, and I practiced for about 10 years before Hurricane Katrina hit. And when it did, I had a sinking pit in my stomach and realizing that my hometown of Oakland could be the next New Orleans for a lot of the socioeconomic reasons. Because there's vulnerabilities that we can't account for. And I had a professional crisis as a structural engineer. We're not doing enough. If we're trying to build resilience in our communities, disaster resilience, there are so many other problems that we're not solving. And so I started a journey on that premise and learned about catastrophe bonds, which are essentially parametric policies, but at a very large scale for corporations. And I thought, well, with less than 10% of Californians buying earthquake insurance, maybe what we need is catastrophe bonds for individuals. And we don't call it's not going to be bonds because it's not a financial instrument, it's insurance. It's essentially micro insurance for this developed economy in order to again, make a small difference in making sure that people can start getting their lives back in order and start this process of rebuilding and neighbors helping neighbors and staying in their communities.
Now, I'm presuming that because this is an insurance product, you can't buy it unless you have an insurable interest. In other words, you've got to have an apartment or a home that you rent or own in order to buy the insurance. I couldn't buy a policy on a California home near the San Andreas Fault to speculate. Is that right?
You do have to affirm during the sign-up process, you have to affirm that location that you're buying it for is a place that you either rent, own, or operate a business. Okay.
So you do have that insurable interest. So I can't speculate. That's probably good for me to know. Kate, as you think about the last 48 hours, in a way, this is probably the biggest test of the product since you launched, right? This
Absolutely.
is the biggest earthquakes. How do you feel today?
Still very excited. My first reaction was just sort of a nervous energy of wondering whether the systems would work. And sure enough, they did. And but I absolutely kept monitoring to make sure that they did. And to have 2 tests of the system in a row was even more exciting. A little bit of anxiety, an edge of anxiety in the excitement, but it's so heartening to know that we are able that we have this example of how we're delivering to our customers and how the Jumpstart product works, because it really makes it tangible so that folks can understand the touch and feel of it.
Yeah. How many customers have you signed up so far?
I would love to share that information, but right now we're keeping that internal. But what I can say is that in the last 48 hours, we've seen a huge spike, more customers in the last 48 hours than the last 2 months combined. So nothing like an earthquake to make you think about what to do to prepare.
Yeah, yeah. How do you price the insurance?
The insurance is priced based on the risk. So it's risk-based pricing. So the probability that your location will experience an earthquake that exceeds the payout trigger is what determines the price. And the price varies by zip code, and the population weighted average price is $20 per month. And the range is between $11 and $33 per month. And that covers California, all of zip codes in California, no exclusions, but only California at this point in time.
Now, there are earthquakes outside California from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have plans to expand?
Absolutely. The more people who know about this, the stronger the case for us to expand to other states.
Now, at this point, you don't know for sure if you have any payouts, but do you have an idea yet of whether or not you have customers who may be entitled to a payout?
As much as I would love to speculate on that, in this forum and on the record, I really can't, I'm not able to comment on that right now.
Yeah. Well, I certainly understand. So Kate, as you think about this now, what are you most proud about having accomplished with Jumpstart Insurance?
Oh, thanks for asking. Having created something that never existed before. And not just that, but something that's making good in the world, that's going to help people in their time of greatest need.
What are you, as you reflect on what you've been learning over the last years, decades, what's the most important lesson for social entrepreneurs that you would take from your experience?
Gosh, there are so many lessons. I guess I would say keeping your sights or your focus on the end goal, the big picture. There are lots of naysayers along the way, lots of distractions, and in helping navigate those distractions and making decisions, your guiding light is the mission that you're going for.
Kate, what is your superpower?
Oh, goodness. So I like pulling together disparate parties, disparate thoughts, disparate ideas into one cohesive whole. And that's definitely took that in order to make Jumpstart a reality.
How did that help you?
Because not only did we have to have the scientific and technical credibility of the earthquake science, we also had to navigate the partnership relationship with Lloyd's, as well as other insurance partners to the extent that they're involved. And then of course, we have to navigate the outreach to the customers and explaining the message of why earthquakes are something that we should be thinking about and protecting against.
Fantastic. Well, Kate, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I appreciate you jumping on this call quickly after the earthquakes. I know you're busy. I know you've got to leave. Before you go, would you take just a minute and tell people how they can learn more about Jumpstart Insurance?
Yes, thank you, Devin. Our website is at jumpstartrecovery.com, and you can find us on social media at Your Jumpstart.
Fantastic. Again, thanks, Kate, for joining us today. Appreciate your time and your willingness to jump on this call over the weekend on short notice. Really appreciate it and wish you every success in insuring more families against the devastating effects of earthquakes.
Thank you.
All righty.
Devin Thorpe's mission is to end extreme poverty, improve global health, and mitigate climate change before 2045 by finding and sharing the stories of those who are doing the most good.
Thanks for tuning in to the Your Mark on the World show, the Social Impact Podcast. Please subscribe via YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify.